Good day, selamat datang, and welcome to the virtual colloquium by Institute of Teacher Education, International Languages Campus, or better known as IPGKBA, with the theme Humanizing Teaching and Learning, the Dynamics of Language Education in the Waves of Global Change. I, Annalisa Zaman, your moderator, a lecturer in IPGKBA, will be hosting this interesting session today. Today would be the third session of our virtual colloquium, and I hope you will stay tuned till the end of this session because we have a very special speaker from Indonesia. Before we get to know him, let me lay out a few housekeeping matters. First, everyone who attends this webinar series will be given an e-certificate after each session. Therefore, do not forget to register yourself now. The registration link is pinned on the top. Second, we would love to hear from you during today's presentation. If you have any questions for our speaker, please feel free to send it through the chat box. The speaker will answer your questions at the end of the session. If we don't answer your question during today's webinar, we will be sure to follow up afterwards. And last, it would be much appreciated if you could share today's webinar with your social networks. Now, let me introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Salim Nabhan. His presentation is entitled Multiliteracies, an approach to language teaching and learning in a digital age. Mr. Salim Nabhan is currently the head of Language Center, as well as an English lecturer with the English Education Department of Universitas PGRI Adibuana, Surabaya, Indonesia. He is also the Vice of Editor-in-Chief of Journal of English Teaching, Adibuana. Published by English Language Education Department, Universitas PGRI Adibuana, Surabaya, Indonesia since 2016. Apart from that, he is a reviewer of several journals, and one of it is at EduLink, or also known as Education and Linguistics Knowledge Journal, published by Kadiri Islamic University, Kediri, Indonesia. He has also written many articles, and the most recent one is entitled Pre-Service Teachers' Conceptions and Competences on Digital Literacy in an EFL Academic Writing Setting. And it can be found in the Indonesian Journal of Applied Linguistics, which was published quite recently this May. He holds a Master of Arts from English University of Delhi, India, sponsored under ICCR scholarship from the Indian government. He is most certainly a busy academician, and we are very lucky to have him today. Without further ado, please welcome Mr. Salim Nabhan.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Annalisa, for the time given. Before presenting, I'd like to thank to IPGKBA for facilitating these virtual colloquiums. Okay, can I present my slide? Right. In these valuable occasions, I'd like to share my presentations under the title Multiliteracies, an approach to language teaching and learning in a digital age. This is basically sharing sessions based on some knowledge and experiences I did in my research before pandemic and during pandemic. Right. In this presentation, I'd like to highlight several points. The first one is understanding new literacies, multiliteracies, multimodality, and digital literacy. The second point is the potentials of multiliteracies pedagogy. And the final point is multiliteracies into practices, Indonesian context and setting. Right. As we understand that the changing nature of literacy related to several things. The first one is today's technological advancements, and the second is learners of today as digital native. And of course, they lead to the expanding of conception of literacy. And therefore, learners as individuals should acquire literacy as many literacies and so-called multiliteracies. Let us see in detail. As we have understood that today, Industrial Revolution 4.1 has exposed some complexities as well as opportunities in educational contexts. We are now in the stage of fourth industrial revolutions. So industrial revolutions has facilitated us with some technology. Even the teachers and learners, they use technology in their day-to-day activities. And this situation is supported by today situation that we are now experiencing. It is COVID-19 outbreak that has forced us to use technology. We want or we don't want, we have to use technology, what we have experiencing today. Um, in teaching and learning process as well, we use some kind like Google Meet, Zoom, then learning management systems, and all apps we use for teaching and learning process. So basically, COVID-19 pandemic has forced us to use the technology. Um, Regarding digital natives, Pransky in 2001 has expressed that it is commonly believed that today's learners are considered to be digital natives and naturally possessing the ability to use digital technology. However, several studies indicated that critical number of students nowadays certainly do not master the expected skills of the literacy only at the basic levels or in the surface level, and they need further training or education to use digital tools for effective learning purposes. And therefore, these digital natives are not fully implemented, and it needs more management, and therefore digital natives will be equipped with a digital literacy. Now, regarding digital natives, I think we should consider these two terms. The first term is first a digital divide. It is related to the access of the internet. Probably several years ago, we found that teachers or learners, they hardly found the access of internet and digital devices. But it is not enough. We have second digital divide in the sense of lack of digital literacy. Even they are provided with digital tools and internet access, but the challenges still remain. It is about a digital literacy issue. Hefel in 2008 explained that more devices and improving networks for do not guarantee meaningful interaction with technology. And therefore, addressing the second digital divide and encouraging high-level learning opportunities for all of our students is a key. Providing devices and a strong network for quick internet access is improving. Providing dynamic and transformational learning opportunities for all of our students remains an ongoing challenge. And from these situations, of course, new digital divide deals with the ability to navigate the digital environment effectively. Right, and those situations that lead to the expanding conceptions of literacy. Understanding the concept of literacy, literacy traditionally refers to reading and writing effectively in a variety of contexts. In the 21st century, the definitions of literacy has increasingly reflected to the ability to use technology for gathering and communicating informations. ERA, International Reading Association, stated that literacies used by today's students are much different from those of their parents, or even those of students from just a decade ago. The ERA position statement reported that in order to become fully literate in today's world, students must become proficient in the literacies of the 21st century technologies. Scribner and Cole in 1981 asserted that literacy is not just simply the ability to read and write particular texts, but it includes the competency of implementing the knowledge for specific purposes and contexts. And therefore, literacy has gone beyond its narrow conception of literacy. It is more than just that. Then, a literacy today. Regarding literacy today, it has a connection with the literacy curriculum. Literacy curriculum today cannot be merely a language-focused curriculum. What is called to be literate in this digital age is to be able to effectively communicate multimodally. So the key terms of being able to communicate multimodally is the important points in this digital age. And thus, Lim 8 in 2008, the English language teaching and learning must go beyond from reading in print to reading both in print and screen, from reading of books to reading of books and viewing multimodal text critically, from writing to writing and typing, and from speaking to speaking and representing. And of course, those things impacted the trends in literacy education, especially in language learning and teaching. We should consider the curriculum changes, then pedagogy, and as well as assessments. But I will not discuss those three things very detailed. I'd like to focus on the pedagogy impacts. Regarding this situation, Weininger in 2019 argued that broadening from language skills to literacy. Language skills, as we understood as skills of reading, listening, writing, then speaking, are not enough. The definitions, yeah, we should redefine those language skills that go beyond the language skills themselves to literacy. We can find this explanation in the book entitled From Language Skills to Literacy, Broadening the Scopes of Language Education Through Media Literacy. And therefore, of course, we have challenge, yeah, how to negotiate between a digital age and educations, especially in language teaching and learning. How to answer, how to respond the expanding of a digital situation nowadays and reformulate in education's process and system. One of the proposals I'd like to present in this occasion is about multiliteracies. Probably everyone has known that multiliteracies has been proposed by the new London Group, NLG, in 1996. Since the development of multiple modes became the focus, the multiliteracies was set as an approach to teaching and learning involving 6 different modes of meaning making: linguistic, visual, audio, gestural, spatial, and multimodal. And multiliteracies itself has a very strong connection with multimodality as well as digitality. Cambridge and Roth stated that multiliteracies as the multiple dimensions of visual, oral, and media in multimodal text, largely enabled by technology. And therefore, if multiliteracies is seen as an approach to teaching and learning, it involves both multimodality, it is multiple modes of meaning making, as well as technology, the use of digital platforms effectively. Basically, using technology is not only about how to use technology, this is only the skill, but in a large definitions related to digital literacy. And therefore, we can have that learners to be multiliterate. Right. Let's go more detail in multiliteracy pedagogy. Implementing the pedagogy of multiliteracies originally necessitates for major components of situated practices, overt instructions, critical framing, and transform practice. These terms are proposed by New London Group, and these terms then redefine and reframe into knowledge processes of experiences, conceptualizing, analyzing, and applying, as written by Cope and Calansis in 2009. Right. Then multiliteracy as pedagogy offer four major dimensions called situated practice or experiencing. It can be experiencing the known, meaning that learners reflect on their own familiar experiences, interests, and perspectives. It can be also experiencing the new. Learners observe or take part in something that is unfamiliar. They are immersed in new situations or contexts. The second dimension is overt instruction or conceptualizing. It can be by naming, in, in the sense that learners group things into categories, apply classifying terms and define these terms, and also can be with theory. Learners make generalizations using concepts and connect terms in concept maps or theories. The third dimension is critical framing or analyzing. It can be functionally. It means that learners analyze logical connections, cause and effects, structure, and functions. It can be critically, meaning that learners evaluate their own and other people's perspectives, interests, and motive. And the final dimension is transform practice or applying. It can be appropriately, in the sense that learners apply new learning to real world situation and test their validity. Or creatively, learners make an intervention in the world which is innovative and creative, or transfer their learning to a different context. Those four major dimensions can be in any order. Right, now we focus on multimodal literacy. The term multimodal literacy was first proposed by Jewett and Kress in 2003. They stated, Kress and Jewett stated that meanings are made, distributed, received, interpreted, and remade in interpretation through many representational and communicative modes. Right, and this is multimodalities, yeah, multiple modes of meaning making proposed by Cope and Calansis. We have several modes: written language in the forms of writing and reading. It can be handwriting, the printed page and the screen, oral language, live or recorded speech, visual representations, still or moving image, sculpture, craft, scene, perspective, audio representations, music, noises, tactile representation, touch, smell, and taste, gestural representations, movements and hands, spatial representations, proximity, spacing, layout, interpersonal distance. Actually, these multimodalities have been implemented in the teaching and learning process during pandemics when teachers or even students are forced to use this kind of multimodal representatives. Suppose like when they present materials not only in visual but can be in audio visuals in the forms of video. Uh, they also present with several modes like posters with images, and they are in the forms of digitality. So these multiple modes of meaning makings is one of the things that are proposed by multiliteracies. And this is in line with the today digital age. Now, we come to the potentials of multiliteracies. Several studies express positive things regarding multiliteracies. The recent studies conducted by Ganapati stating that learning English language using multiliteracies pedagogy with multimodal approach. So with multimodal approach, promote students' independent learning, motivations, and learning techniques. Then the second study conducted by Smith suggesting that multimodal literacy could be incorporated in English language classroom by utilizing technology, and it brings positive outcomes. So the first key point is about multimodality. The second key point is about utilizing technology. And in addition to this, Rajendram in 2015 also conducted a study regarding multiliteracies pedagogy that has been proven to be substantial in teaching English since it provides the student with multiple modes of communication offered by technology. So basically, these approaches have been implemented long time back when just before pandemic happened in the end of 2019. Right, and we go very closely to multiliteracies into practice. As we have understood that multiliteracies pedagogy involved several dimensions like experiencing, conceptualizing, analyzing, and applying. And the question is how to bring these concepts into practices, especially in English language teaching and learning. There are several activities proposed based on those things. The first is experiences. Some activities proposed are brainstorming, then think, pair, share, true or false questions, and then about conceptualizing concept maps, synonyms, substitution, and text annotations can be suggested activities in multiliteracies. And in analyzing as well, 3-to-1 summary, debate, and self-assessments can be the activities. And in applying sections, we have genre reformulations, then personal actions plan, and as well storytelling. Those four concepts can be in any order. Right. I take one examples how to design multiliteracies in a lesson plan. Part one is contextualize the lessons. There are several things to consider in teaching context, including learning objectives, then language forms, cultural content, as well as authentic text and communicative modes. In learning objectives, what we expect our students will be able to do something, will is those things as learning objectives. This is also, of course, related to the topic given to the students. Talk about things to do in the city, or say where a place is located, and so on. Then language forms, what language components they are taught to the students, like some vocabs related to city, then some grammar related to question formations, and so on, as well as cultural content. As we see that multiliteracies also involve cultural aspects in this case. Then from this lesson plan, we can analyze our lesson plans. In analyzing our lesson plans, we have to go into more details in several activities. What are the students doing during the classroom in several activities? Activity 1, Activity 2, Activity 3, Activity 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. For examples, Activity 1, students compare fact. Then students read title and brief summary. Reading and completing the text matrix like this one. Then rereading block commands and using expression and so on. By having these activities, then we can have some kind like context analysis and knowledge process analysis. Content analysis and knowledge process analysis can be seen in several activities that we have made. The first is about context analysis. In the lesson plan, it has been mentioned that learning objectives in 1 to 8 activities. Yeah. So learning objective 1, 2, and 6 refers to the first activity. Then learning objective 1 refers to the second activities. So every single activities are inside of the learning activities, including language forms. In activity 1, it deals with language forms 1 to 5. In activity 8, for example, it relates to language forms 1, 2, 3, and 5, as well as cultural content. Right, and about knowledge process analysis, this is about the dimensions of multiliteracies: experiencing, conceptualizing, analyzing, applying. From those 8 activities, we can identify that certain activity has a certain knowledge process. For example, the first activity, comparing facts, it has experiencing knowledge process, as well as activity 3, activity 4, and activity 7. Then in knowledge process of conceptualizing, it relates to activity 3, activity 5, and activity 7. Meaning that one activity can have more than one knowledge process. Like activity 3, it has experiencing as well as conceptualizing. In analyzing knowledge process as well, yeah, it relates to activity 2, then activity 6. And finally, in applying knowledge of process, it relates to activity 5 and activity 8. Usually the final activity is about implementations. However, they can be managed in any order. So if we want to have this approach done in teaching and learning process, we have to design into lesson plan with several activities representing the context as well as the knowledge process. And in addition to this, we can also evaluate our lessons. These evaluations is very beneficial to have improvement in the future teaching and learning process. So basically, this lesson plan is the second revisions in the previous lesson plan. Yeah, it has been improved. Detail about this lesson plan can be taken in kala.umn.edu, yeah, with complex detail information regarding literacy-based teaching and learning English. Right, and I'll come with several activities, how to bring multiliteracies into ELT classroom practices. This is basically sharing regarding my study that I have conducted just before pandemic in 2019. I have implemented multiliteracies and multimodal literacy in the context of writing in ELT classroom. As I understand that the conception of teaching English skills, including writing, is not merely limited to the language skills target, but also how the learners becomes multiliterate in facing today's world. So teaching writing is this not just teaching writing itself. We have to integrate, we have to go beyond the teaching writing itself. And this article put forward the framework of multiliteracies that is integrated in process writing approach to bridge the gap between literacy educations and writing pedagogy. In my article, I propose multiliteracies and process writing approach framework. uh, in this framework, I included some stages in process writing approach, including pre-writing, planning and organizing, drafting, reflections, peer or tutor review, revisions, editing and proofreading, and finally publishing, with several possible activities representing knowledge processes of multiliteracies and using predominant modes or multimodal and digital technology in the learning and teaching process. It can be linguistics, audiovisuals, gestural, spatials, and so on. So incorporating those elements into writing can have more benefits to the students, not just learning writing, but it can go beyond that. So the findings suggested that implementing the framework in teaching writing provide pre-service teachers with the opportunities to embrace the multiple modes of meaning making and a digital technology in writing, produce text, and present them in multimodal and creative ways. In addition, despite several challenges in its implementations, the activities help to improve the writing skills, decrease the chance of plagiarisms, and increase the authentic writing. Finally, pre-service teachers were motivated to enhance their digital literacy used in writing practices. As a result, the study suggests that multiliteracies had a space in the teaching writing. Right. Then, um, basically, in the multiliteracies approach, it is not about how to use the modes multimodally, but how to teach them with digitality, how to equip them with the digital literacy. As we see that digital literacy is not just the ability to operate the devices, no, but it has several dimensions. It can be critical thinking, online safety skills, digital culture, collaboration and creativity, finding information, communications, and the last is functional skills. I put these concepts of digital literacy into what to be literate in an academic writing setting. So instead of having them write, we also equip them with the digital literacy, it including critical thinking, analyzing and evaluating information from the internet, online safety skills, how to have personal security when using internet, such as issue of copyright, issue of digital footprint, issue of plagiarisms, because sometimes we found some students, they are not aware of the issue of e-safety. They just copy and paste so on without knowing the consequences, as well as digital culture, creating online communities and forming identities, collaboration and creativity, in the sense that students should promote collaboration and creativity using digital tools. And the next aspect is one of the most important. It is about finding information, knowing how to use the online tools to better research. Even they are digital natives, but not all students can utilize digital tools for in effective way for their need, yeah, especially in academic writing, as well as communication, how to communicate both effectively and safely. And the last is functional skills, being competent using technology to be more autonomous. Right, so those dimensions should be taught by students to have effective communications. Right, so we come to the final slide, conclusions, that the emergence of new perspective of literacy is often associated with new literacies. To define what to be literate in the 21st century, in the educational context, understanding literacies has led to variety models of new approaches and new identities for meaning makers. Multiliteracies basically emerges as a response to the changing of communications into multimodality, written language, oral language, visual representations, audio representation, tactile representation, gestural representations, represents to oneself, spatial representation, and the involvement of digital literacy that includes critical thinking, online safety, digital culture, collaboration and creativity, finding information, communications, and functional skills. Also, it identifies four major dimensions of pedagogy, including situated practice, overt instruction, critical framing, and transfer practice. So we can conclude that multiliteracies has a space in a digital age. Thank you very much for your nice attentions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nabhan, for the sharing. It is certainly the new age direction where teaching literacy nowadays basically needs to go beyond print. Certainly more challenging, yeah. Especially now that based due to COVID-19, we've been thrusted into using all things digital. Excuse me. The Based on your presentation, you have actually presented also that you carried it out the lesson plan of including multiliteracies in a lesson plan. Am I right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I would like to know, because this is done in Indonesia itself, so I'm not that familiar with the schools in Indonesia. So, what was the reception like towards with the children, with the students? I'm not talking about the pre-service student teachers. I'm talking about the students in schools.
Right, okay. Basically, I have already implemented in a university levels,
Mm-hmm,
and they have a very positive reception regarding this approach. In the case of high school students,
mm-hmm.
I haven't done personally, but
Okay.
recently I have done several studies with my students regarding multimodality. And of course, it depends on the schools and students we conduct a research. Most of my students are teaching in sub urban cities in which they have some challenges, including internet access and devices, and therefore implementing multiliteracies faces several problems, of course. This situation is quite different when we implement in urban case study, like in Surabaya city. They
Okay.
have no problem with the internet access as well as devices. So this kind of approaches can be implemented very well, and they have a very positive attitude toward these approaches. And reading as well from several
Mm-hmm.
studies in general, it indicates as well that learners they have a positive attitude toward these approaches. To my conclusions that because these multiliteracies that is involve digitality and multimodality that are in line in today's digital age situations, and it is very relevant.
I see. Okay. So, in a whole, it's been received quite positively by the students themselves. Okay. How about I'm not sure where to what extent your research has been conducted. Have teachers in schools, teachers who are teaching currently, have they started using the multiliteracies in the classroom in Indonesia?
Well, it is very good questions, right? It is interesting to know that in 2015, if I'm not mistaken, Indonesian government has launched intervention program called literacy education's movements, which in which this movement is intended to improve the students' literacy, and it has to be implemented in all sections of education level, including elementary school, senior high
Mhm.
schools, junior high schools, and senior high schools. And I did a research regarding the perceptions of students and teachers and the implementations of these school literacy movements. There are several surprising findings. The first that the conceptions of literacy itself among the teachers are still in a basic level of perceptions. In other words, that teachers still perceives that literacy is still the ability of writing, then readings. It should be go beyond that, and of
Mhm.
course these perceptions will influence to their practices, and therefore their practices as well are very varieties as well. Like we have several kinds of activities like 15 minutes reading before classes. Yeah, it has been
Mhm.
done by the teachers in literacy programs, including like special modes, a gallery, and so on, and also video presentation as well. But the most surprising things I found that during this COVID-19, even they have a basic perception of literacy. This is about literacy. They have already implemented multimodality. So multimodality has been taught to the learners as well, in which
Mhm.
that in the teaching learning process they use multimodality, like a video, then audio, then also posters, including some activities which are related to multimodality. As well, the students are also taught with particular multimodal modes as well, like how to use the applications, how to um, use the audio, the video, uh, and they can use that. And of course, with notes with several challenges. So this pandemic has forced them to implement, even not 100%, the concept of multiliteracy itself, yeah, in the sense of the use of multimodality and the involvement of digitality. Yeah.
Yeah,
In my research, I noted that even they have implemented several items in multiliteracies, but um, they need further understanding regarding the comprehensive concepts of literacy and multiliteracies in order that they can implement, yeah, those literacies concept into their practices. And I'm still working in this last point, right?
I see. Okay. So meaning to say that the reception is it's positive, but it needs a bit of work. The teachers need to have a better understanding of multiliteracies and in the teaching aspects, teaching and learning aspects. Am I right to say that then?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. We've got two more questions here. Can it be applied in mathematics when teaching mathematics? Because we've been talking about the English language or language per se. So in mathematics, can it be done?
Okay, well, interesting questions, right? As far as I understand through several studies, that multiliteracies were not only implemented in language teaching as well, but also it can be implemented in other subjects. Suppose maths, yeah. In mathematics subjects, we can use this approach, multiliteracy approach, in the dimensions of several activities in knowledge process, like experiencing, analyzing, conceptualizing, then applying, yeah, as well as using multiple modes like audio, visual, linguistic, spatials, as well as digitality. Nowadays, we find many applications in learning maths, and the way the students learned maths as well, more multimodal right now. So it has gone beyond the traditional classroom practices in today's activity. And once we see that this pandemic situation has
Hmm.
forced all learners, yeah, all
Yeah.
teachers in all subjects, they they reconceptualize the way they teach and how the learners learned the subjects, including maths. I haven't gone through very closely related to the implementation in math, but to my understanding, that these concepts, this approach can be implemented in other subject.
Okay. So, well, yeah, judging by that and that everyone is like forced into the whole thing thanks to COVID-19, I suppose multiliteracies can be applied in other subjects apart from language. Okay, one more question here. Um, what is, all right, in a multiliteracy curriculum, do we need to consider or can we consider the learning styles or learning strategies of our learners?
Learning strategies in.
Our learning styles and the learning strategies of learners, do we have to consider that when we build or when we implement a multiliteracies curriculum?
Okay, right. um, I'll try to relate with language education curriculums. Right.
Mm-hmm.
As I have explained in my previous slide, that this 21st century educations has a very several impacts in curriculums, pedagogy, as well as assessments. As we see that in English language curriculums, uh, the learners should be not only learn about the skills that we know, that they learn about reading, then writing, listening, then speaking. But the target must go beyond that. Some researchers has proposed the terms not skills, but even literacy, because skills are very narrowed, yeah. But the literacy must go beyond that. As we see that when learning reading, it is not only learning reading but also viewing, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
writing, not only writing in printed text but also typing, and also speaking, not only speaking orally but also represent things. Of course, this target of the learners should be developed further in response to the today's situation, that is 21st century skills and digital aids. And the final target, that learners are said to be multiliterate, in the sense that they use any kinds of sources to have effective communications. The effective communication as a basic key to set the goals to the students, not only how they learn the skills itself.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, we have to redefine, we have to reconceptualize the English language education itself into a broad perspective. It has to go beyond those skills. And to get this, of course, we have to set several strategies, yeah, including in pedagogic um, aspect as well, and also in the assessments. In the pedagogic aspect, we have proposed multiliteracies with multimodality and digitality. And in assessment as well, it can be traditional assessment, like speaking. Then we evaluate their speech now, but with several aspects to get to know their literacy practices. So, of course, yeah, um, it takes several strategies, yeah, to set the goals, that students not only learning the skills but how to
Mm-hmm.
be literate in today's digital age.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Interesting. Okay. So basically, um, in a way, I would say that it does touch on most of the learning styles and learning strategies of the learners, but it takes a while of making sure that what we do in the classroom actually does the job in that sense, the multiliteracies, because based on your presentation, it has to do with kinesthetic. You have to search on the internet looking for information, connecting the dots, all those things. So of course, in a way, it does actually um, learning styles and the learning strategies of learners are incorporated in that as well. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong for on that, Mr. Nabhan.
Yes, more or less. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. I think that's we've got only about like 5 minutes left. So I I think we can stop there. And before that, I wish to thank you again for enlightening us on the topic multiliteracies, an approach to language teaching and learning in a digital age. Definitely a good insight, and the way to go at the moment. It looks like it's here to stay, and I'm sure we are now very clear about how multiliteracies can help enhance the teaching and learning in the classroom. And with that, we hope that you all out there have gained some insights on the matter and enjoyed the presentation by Mr. Nabhan. Um, Thank you very much, Mr. Nabhan. So
Yeah,
this
you're
is
most welcome.
okay. This includes the webinar. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you have learned and enjoyed this presentation. I would like to thank the Educational Technology Division of MOE for the platform and our lovely rapporteurs. Please do not forget, our next webinar series will be held this coming 17 September 2021 on Friday, and it will be live at 11 a.m. Malaysian time. Till then, goodbye from Malaysia.
Whew, that's the word. Whew.
Thank you so much, Mr. Salim.
It was
Most
good.
I
It
welcome.
hope
was
we
so
did.
good.
I hope we didn't bombard you with so many questions. I mean.